News every 15 minutes, weather every 10, and sports twice an hour.
News Talk KGVO, AM 1290 and now 101.5 FM.
You're listening to Montana Morning with Peter Christian.
Clark Fork River recovery victim identified. Good morning, everyone. It's Montana Morning. Here it is Friday. Congratulations, you made it. Friday, June 13th, but if you're a triskaidekaphobiac, that could spell trouble if you're afraid of the number 13. It's Friday the 13th, but it's still Friday, right? And our newscast this morning sponsored by Temprite Service. Any plumbing or heating problems or air conditioning problems, call Team Blue 728-1111. This morning's top story, the victim in Wednesday's vehicle recovery effort in the Clark Fork River has now been identified as 71-year-old Melvin Arthur Beadle. The cause and manner of death are under investigation by the county coroner. The investigation into what caused the accident is being handled by the Missoula Police Department. Sheriff's Office spokeswoman Paige Pavolone praised the heroic efforts of the fire and search and rescue personnel.
There was a person that actually jumped on top of the vehicle while it was in the water and maneuvered, tethering it to a tow strap all by himself, knocked out the windows. They removed the victim without incident. So it was just smooth and coordinated, and I thought everybody did a really great job, and I think that everybody here would agree.
Beadle's minivan jumped the curb in a fast food parking lot and went into the fast-moving river. Missoula Police Department spokesman Travis Welsh says searchers found the vehicle completely submerged and upside down near a trestle about 200 yards downstream from where it entered the river. He says a line attached to the vehicle caused it to turn right side up with the top at the surface, and a rescuer was able to get access through a window. Montana will open satellite voting offices on 3 reservations under a settlement in a federal lawsuit. Last year, 12 Indian plaintiffs and Secretary of State sued Secretary of State Linda McCullough and elections officials in Blaine, Rosebud, and Bighorn counties. They argued they had to drive long distances to county courthouses to register late and vote early in elections. Their lawsuit said the lack of satellite offices make it difficult to vote and is a violation of the Federal Voting Rights Act. That settlement reached Tuesday calls for the state and counties to open satellite voting offices on the Crow, Northern Cheyenne, and Fort Belknap reservations. First, speaking of politics, the first post-primary poll of the U.S. Senate race between Republican Steve Daines and Democrat John Walsh was released by Rasmussen Reports yesterday. Many thought that Daines' lead might narrow a bit once the contentious Democratic primary had ended. But as pollster Fran Coombs explains, that certainly doesn't seem to be the case.
We've got Steve Daines up 53-35 over John Walsh. That's a little higher margin, in fact, than we had earlier this year. In March, it was 51-37, so Daines led by 14 points at that point. He's up by 18 now.
Coombs says the Affordable Care Act may be the reason Walsh's poll numbers have lagged.
Daines obviously is viewed more favorably. We see, for example, Obamacare is very unpopular in Montana, more unpopular there than in fact than it is even nationwide. As you know, there are Democrats all over the country who are running away from Obamacare, Democrats who are running for re-election. That may be hurting Walsh.
Combs said the poll targeted 750 likely voters in Montana. 2 people have been sentenced in separate cases related to an ongoing corruption investigation on the Blackfeet and other Indian reservations in Montana. Federal prosecutors say 58-year-old Sandra Marie Sanderville of Browning was sentenced yesterday to 2.5 years in prison after pleading guilty in February to theft from an Indian government receiving federal grant funds. Sanderville was the director of the Blackfeet Tribe's Temporary Aid to Needy Families program from 2006 to 2010. Prosecutors said she overpaid TANF recipients who then kicked back a portion of the money to her. She was ordered to pay more than $297,000 in restitution. 2 hikers got lost while coming back from a day hike in Glacier Park this week. Park spokeswoman Jennifer Lutman says they were hiking near Marias Pass when they made a call for help late Tuesday.
We located one of the hikers on U.S. Highway 2, approximately 2 a.m., and then the other hiker was too exhausted to continue, so he stayed in the backcountry. We sent in 5 crews of employees here at the park at 6 a.m. Wednesday, the next day. And we were able to locate him, and he was fine, tired and hungry and a little wet, but he had no injuries, so we're thankful he was able to be recovered.
Lutman says search and rescue crews are called out to find lost hikers at least a couple of times every year, and that visitors to the park need to be sure to bring necessary supplies just in case that happens, things like extra water, maps, and a compass while enjoying the park. The former manager of the Montana Expo Park would drop her wrongful termination lawsuit against Cascade County in exchange for being allowed to resign under a proposed settlement. The Great Falls Tribune reports that Cascade County commissioners voted yesterday to rescind the May firing of Lisa Bracco and approve the settlement. Bracco was fired during an investigation into the finances of the facility that houses Montana State Fair and other events. The county has not said whether it was related to the investigation. The settlement calls for keeping the reasons for Bracco's termination confidential. The Tribune's asking a judge to force the county to release documents related to the dismissal. A hearing is set for next Tuesday. Bracco says the county commissioners violated open meeting laws and their policies by firing her. Montana is now the only state in the nation, as we reported yesterday, that doesn't ban at least some drivers from texting statewide. Now that South Carolina's new law took effect, State Senator Christine Kaufman from Helena says even though some counties have banned texting while driving, she believes the state should have some kind of statewide legislation to address it.
It just makes sense. You know, there's really three basic things that are wrong with use of these electronic devices. And one is it takes your eyes off the road. The second one is it takes your hands off the wheel. And the third one is that it takes your mind off the task of driving. And all of those are critical. It leads to accidents and deaths in the state of Montana.
Kaufman says she's in full support of any legislation that's brought next session looking to ban texting while driving.
I'll be there to support it and help it out along the way. I think it's an important policy for the state of Montana, and it's shameful that we are last. You know, I think it's important to always work for the policy that you think is best. And to me, that is a ban on the use of these devices while driving.
Department of Transportation Director Mike Tooley says he believes Montana needs such a ban, but the state has always left such laws to municipalities. A federal judge has ruled that logging will be allowed along roads in part of the Gallatin National Forest scorched by wildfire. The Bozeman Daily Chronicle reports that U.S. District Judge Dana Christensen here in Missoula ruled last week that logging along 15 miles of roads will not harm endangered grizzly bear or lynx. The Millie Fire in 2012 burned about 16 square miles along Stormcastle Creek in Gallatin Canyon. The Forest Service back in April of 2013 approved the Millie Roadside Hazard Tree Removal Project. Last August, the Alliance for the Wild Rockies and Native Ecosystems Council filed a lawsuit contending the proposed logging could harm endangered species, but Christensen ruled the groups failed to prove their point. Up to 730 acres will be logged. Our News Talk time now is 6:10.
News Talk, KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
It will be a wet day around the Missoula area, even though we could see a little bit of sunshine as we go later into the day. Isolated thunderstorms as well, so we'll continue to see a few rumbles of thunder and more rain. Cool today as well with a high of only 64 degrees. I'm meteorologist Matt Gray for NBC Montana.
Thanks, Matt. Pretty sunrise this morning. Still, as he said, plenty of clouds. There's 50 degrees in Missoula. And in the thunderstorms last night, I talked to the Weather Bureau a few minutes ago. We had anywhere from 25 to 50 lightning strikes around the Missoula area, but no fires because everything's just so wet. So that's a good deal.
Information never stops. The news you need right now. More Montana news headlines. News Talk, KGVO. Depend on it.
And these headlines brought to you by Bitterroot Motors, where for 41 years they've been doing it right. Value, selection, and service in giving back to the community. Nobody does it better. The Montana Supreme Court has reversed a Helena man's conviction of scalding a 3-year-old boy in a bathtub and sent the case back to district court. The Helena Independent Record reports that the court ruled Tuesday that District Court Judge Jeffrey Sherlock erred by not extending the trial so an expert witness for the defense could testify. Christopher Gleed received a 20-year prison term back in January of 2013 after being convicted of aggravated assault. A doctor from Children's Medical Center in Salt Lake City testified at Gleed's trial there were signs the child was forcefully immersed in the 130-degree water. An expert witness for Gleed was prepared to testify how the burns on the child could be accidental, but he was traveling, and Sherlock refused to delay the trial. Yesterday, the Missoula City Council, earlier this week, the City Council discussed adding transgender reassignment surgery and hormone therapy as part of a new benefit package for the city employee health plan. The council heard from Chloe Metzler, a representative of the Gender Expansion Project.
Okay, so the Gender Expansion Project, we're working in the rural Northwest, so that's basically all of the states encompassing from like the Dakotas all the way over to Eastern Washington. And our whole focus is like breaking the gender binary, recognizing the fact that gender is like a fluid construct. And so our main focus is obviously on trans health care.
City Councilman Brian Van Lossberg says he's in favor of the plan.
I just want to say I'm fully supportive of this. It's, to me, a pretty straightforward situation of doing the detailed work to back up our actions under the non-discrimination ordinance and policy. I think it's just clearly the correct, right, ethical thing to do.
The council voted to hear more details about the plan, including more specifics about the costs involved. Missoula Lifelong Learning Center will be honoring the first graduates since the transition from the GED to a new high school equivalency test called the HiSET in January. Director of Missoula County Public Schools Adult Education Division, Monique Fortman, has more.
We get to celebrate a graduation for our adults who have completed their high school equivalency diploma. We are looking forward to celebrating 64 adults that since the beginning of the year have taken a brand new high school equivalency exam and have successfully passed it.
Fortman said the new HiSET program, which replaces the GED, has resulted in a graduation rate of 92%. The ceremonies will be tonight, 7 o'clock at the Missoula Lifelong Learning Center. Used to be, of course, Emma Dickinson School on Curtis Street. News Talk Times 618.
News Talk KGVO.
Missoula's official weather station.
A very cool day today. We're only going to reach into the mid-60s in the Missoula Valley. Expect more rain showers, even though we could see a little bit of sun by the afternoon and some isolated lightning. I'm meteorologist Matt Gray for NBC Montana.
All right, thanks, Matt. Cloudy indeed. We have 50 degrees in Missoula. Lots of lightning last night. Between 25 and 50 lightning strikes hit the ground last night with the thunderstorms. The Osgood File standing by, but first I got to tell you, the weather's brought to you by Diggett Excavating. Give them a call, 214-4292. You can also visit their website at diggettmontana.com.